cheek line or something like that, we should be prepared, and every company should have on the similar lines of that. Negative entity database of the GI and LI, that is life insurance and general insurance. Contracting with the agency vendors का database नहीं है शायद. I don't know that everyone knows that. Somebody approaches me, I know that. Now there should be a database which all the investigator or the detectives should be feed over there. They should be graded, or there be certification should be there. I should go and check it. Okay, I have a requirement in Jharkhand. Should I take this guy? Okay, fine. There's a star against him. There is certification against him. I should do that. Some recommendations. So the database, like Swiggy and Zomato, how we will choose the hotels, how we'll choose the food. So like that, because now we have to come to that level. This fraternity is there. No, we should also upgrade them. No, they are just okay down. They have to upgrade them. We give
Of
new
course.
technology. So you are one of the pioneer companies who can just start developing like this and do something
Sure.
good to this fraternity. So I thought like within the time allowed, I put a lot of things to you and the fraternity, which I want to share. And these are my thoughts, because a lot of new things maybe come up, because this is my few things which I thought I have learned due to the COVID, which I have overcome my constraints, and my company is doing better on this time with the technologies and this modern tools. Shivin,
Thank you. Thank you,
that's from my
Jeevan.
part.
Thank you, Jeevan. Thanks a lot. Really insightful. I agree. There has to be collaboration between physical and digital investigations. And as you correctly said, COVID is probably the agent provocateur for the
Right.
change. And we've been discussing this, you and I and others in the fraternity for a while. It's really kicked in now in the last 9 months. And I agree with you that going forward, it will bite more into the physical investigation space.
Right.
And slowly and steadily it will move in. And again, I couldn't agree more. There are so many tools, there are so many APIs which are available online and available for everyone. You just have to dig in deep and kind of come up with the right kind of vendor for that. Ensure
Right.
that he is government approved and authorized and he's not selling you the wrong data.
Right.
And then, yes, CPII, we just had a panel discussion before. It's something that we've been pushing and we'll be pushing more with some more reforms, upgraded curricula. And last but not the least, there is a massive move for, everyone to come and collaborate more at your
Yeah.
industry level, of course, the GI Council and the rest, even at APDI, we've been thinking how I really like your suggestion that there has to be a database of all the investigators. So probably CPII and APDI have to look into it and come up with that. So on
Right.
that note, Jeevan, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Thanks a lot for giving us such a comprehensive, sort of view of how you all have navigated the last 9 odd months. So thanks a lot, Jeevan. Thank you.
Thank you, because it is giving back to this fraternity I always love. And thank you for choosing me and giving me a time to address this fraternity. Once again, thank you for Shiven and your entire team, and all the best to the fraternity who have been there listening to me. So we next time we meet, we'll be tech savvy people. So all we'll be discussing more on a technical this thing. Thank you,
Right.
Shiven, once again.
Thank you, Jeevan. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I have a very interesting speaker who's going to talk about a very pertinent subject as part of this session. The speaker is Mr. Joan Kirsten, and he will be speaking on investigation considerations for 2021. Mr. Kirsten comes with an exceptional and a very interesting background. He is Director General of ISIO since 2002, which was originally focused on technology in the security industry. Initially, ISIO endorsed security exhibitions and seminars, and as the years went by, the emphasis was placed more on the physical security space, to which ISIO became a renowned source of information. ISIO has been recognized for its formed bilateral relationships with other associations and organizations. Physical security led to the establishment of Human Investigation Management that was established in 2013 on the launch of an e-Connect tool that is evidence-based and reviewed by top renowned academics and practitioners. Further research and keeping in time with the vulnerability landscape, Mr. Kirsten has produced manuscripts and short guidance articles focusing on outthinking and outsmarting the perpetrators by uncovering new crime, discovering hidden issues, and creating opportunities, solutions, protocols, methods to limit it or mitigate collateral damage. So over to you, Mr. Kirsten.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me. I'm really privileged to attend and participate in this event. Thank you very much for inviting me to the ADPI Leadership Summit. It's a very important summit, and the moment in time is vital. This is a vital period in time. And so we're going to be discussing considerations for investigation for 2020. My name is Juan Kirsten. I'm the Director General of ISIO, the International Security Industry Organization, as well as the author of HIM, Human Investigation Management. In order to understand the landscape, the vulnerability landscape for 2021, it's important for us to consider what's transpired in 2020. When the active biological threat, and that's what we call it, began in February, we alerted all practitioners that they must have a discussion, a conversation with the owner of the company or the managing director of the company, and as well as the human resource manager and the financial director, to put them into the picture of what's taking place. In this way, they will be able to keep some budget for the security sector and investigation sector. Normally, corporate companies believe that security is an expense, and therefore they don't allocate or carry as much importance. But when it comes down to an active biological threat, at the end of the day, security is the most crucial department, because it's not a question of loss prevention, it's a question of profit protection. Practitioners in this field could easily handle and do handle life-impacting and deadly outcomes. And this is the mentality that we actually have to have for the position and the job at hand. We have to understand the nature of the beast, knowing exactly what we're dealing with. So when the first signs of the pandemic began, we evaluated and we actually understood the full nature of the beast, exactly what was going to take place. And we rolled it out with protocols immediately. So in March, we already began to issue protocols. And the reason why we issued security protocols was because the Department of Health, their contribution of 3 protocols. The one is chemical testing, the next is hygiene, and the third is social interactions with others. And these are vital in order to reduce the spread of this pathogen, of this virus. But security practitioners have to do more. They have to create security protocols because they are frontliners. And therefore we created security protocols to deal with this active biological threat. The second issue that I will be discussing is with regards to the calm related to this particular threat. And the third one that I'm going to be discussing is the outcome related to the pandemic, which is the economic meltdown. And this is where organized crime and transnational crime is going to thrive. And lastly, the issue that the practitioners will have to do and the investigators to do is to actually work with artificial intelligence, because we're going into the 4th industrial revolution. And over this period of time when everybody was locked down, the technical people were coming up with different types of technologies, and therefore we have to incorporate these technologies with what's carrying on right here and now. With regards to the actual pandemic, inside the protocols, we considered various issues that have taken place. The first one is that in 9/11, in 2001, after 9/11, in 2002, all the exhibitions were full. Everybody ran onto the exhibitions with facial recognition, IP technology, IP cameras, because there was the shift from analog to internet protocol IP, palm biometrics, palm readers, all different technologies. And as the technologies became a bit more tested, and they went through the beta stage into the alpha stage, into being authenticated and standardized, there were many issues. So what happened was that the big companies bought out the small companies, and the small companies that had nothing blew out. So what happened was that the exhibitions reduced in size over the years. The same things happen now with CV19, which is 1 and a 9, the same as 9/11. They both got 1s and 9s. It's quite coincidental. But what happened is that many manufacturers went onto the market and immediately started adding software for thermal imaging and the equipment such as temperature controls. And some of them knew exactly what they had and tried to get contracts and tenders in different countries, and therefore they actually tried to list themselves as a medical device. Now, one of these companies is an Oriental manufacturer, and they tried to penetrate Australia, and they sold a lot in Australia. But there is a laboratory in the States that was testing the equipment and actually found out the actual issue that was taking place. And the Australian government found out about this, and they banned that Oriental company, as well as threw them out of Australia. So that means that all the security managers in Australia went and purchased this equipment, and next minute they landed up with illegal equipment that wasn't suitable. Now, for equipment and for investigations, it's vital to have credible and legitimate equipment, because if they get called into the authorities or the courts, at the end of the day, if you're dealing with illegal equipment, it doesn't actually service and support the case at hand. So inside the protocol of security protocols, we actually insist by checking 2 points, the FDA and IPVM. I for India, P for Papa, V for Victor, M for Mike.com. And they check the brands, the different brands of equipment in relation to thermal detection. And the FDA as well have got not only what are the criteria for thermal imaging or for the thermometers, but also the installation as well as the utilization. So all of these are important issues to take into consideration. So I'm just giving you one example of why security protocols are relative and very important for corporate security and for investigating in order to understand the nature of the beast. And there's even crime inside that. There's crime in all sectors, in all faculties. And this pandemic is actually impacting it in so many different which ways. We have to layer as well the manpower according to the actual threat, because the population is very different to what we used to have. Now they are very depressed people and anxious, and there's some people that are mentally disturbed and people with phobias that don't want to, that are scared to get any form of, they clean their hands all the time. They've got OCD and they paranoia. So you're dealing with a very volatile group of people, and therefore we have to lay the manpower according to the actual threat. And if you're having a look at artificial intelligence, you're utilizing different technologies in order to understand where to put the manpower and how to lay them by the reporting that's coming from the ground. Security success depends on the level of situational awareness of the people on the ground and their reaction speed. Now, in investigations, reaction speed is timelessly. In other words, you don't want to, if you know that somebody's done something wrong, you don't want to immediately charge them. What you want to do is take your time to see if maybe they're actually working in concert with other people. Either they're doing the crime voluntarily or they're doing it under duress. They're being bullied, blackmailed, extorted. So at the end of the day, reaction speed is for the right reason, at the right time, in the right environment, will you actually try and capture the entire ring. But when it comes down to an active biological threat, reaction speed is immediate. There's no question of thinking, or should I get this information, or should I, you have to actually do, it's at top speed we have to work, and the decision making is very, we can't afford to have fear of making decisions because we're doing something. It's better to do something than doing nothing. So it's a very vital component. So the formulas change according to the environment, but we have to understand the nature of the beast, exactly what we're contending with and what we're dealing with. The second stage is that the outcome, and this pandemic has actually caused the economies to collapse. Millions of people have lost their job. Millions of people are at the food lines around the world. They're desperate for food. They're losing their homes. Their basic needs that they need. They haven't got money for asthma pumps for their children, or oxygen bottles, or no matter what they need. These are basic needs that will motivate people to do things that one would never ever think would possibly happen. And so we're going to have an increased volume of insider threat, of nepotism, of corruption. We're going to have so much of that type of crime that's going to elevate in such an amazing way. It's similar to between the 1930s and the 1940s, and that was the time, or the period of time, when we gave birth to the organized crime, the mafia. All these bodies actually grew in size in order to, and the illegitimate common economy, the illegal economy, grew huge. And they will take advantage of people that are desperate, because people will go to desperate measures and they'll deal with people and borrow money and do things that they shouldn't be doing. So organized crime is going to be taking advantage, and they can actually capture a person or a department in a company for their agenda, for their purpose. So we're going into a new stage now, and a further stage where we're going into vaccine security, because even though the vaccine is for free, rest assured, organized crime, transnational crime, and con people will come on and try and sell vaccine that they can get a special price, you know, for a bit of money, because there are people that don't want to go and stand in the queue. They'll do anything to get the vaccine and not having to go and stand in the queue. And organized crime, they deal in selling drugs. They have an infrastructure, they have a network. They can actually get rid of equipment or drugs or anything like that. So even if it is the actual real vaccine, there can also be counterfeit vaccine that actually is part of this. And people will take advantage. They have no conscience. They will actually kill people to get wealthy. Money, you know, it's the root of all evil. It's just the way it is. The love of money, anyway. Money isn't bad, but the love of money is definitely can cause major problems and issues. So we have this perfect storm of all these things happening, and we also have not only of that crime, but we also have the internet and the developing of the internet at such a fast pace. So if you put all of this together, the speed that we've got to be able to contend with, because the criminals are trying to daily outthink and outsmart the security system. This is the technology as well as the manpower. And so the vulnerability landscape, because you've got millions of predators or criminals that are actually thinking all the time, this is their livelihoods. And now you've got people that are unemployed, masses of people that will actually maybe go and do certain things because they're also desperate. So the moral code will actually erode depending on the needs of the person. The amount of crime that's going to be taking place, new crime. So our objective is to actually work as not criminal investigators, but security investigators. Criminal investigators are only called in after the fact. Our big nightmare is not knowing what's truly happening on the ground under our nose. When did it happen? Why did it happen? Who's part of it? When did it begin? How did it begin? Why did it begin? These are all we need to find what we don't know. And this is the X factor. This is our biggest nightmare. Many practitioners in risk or investigation, they look to and they try to predict the future. At the end of the day, our big problem is what's going on already now that we are unaware of. That is our biggest nightmare. And the way that we approach this is very different. So the world going into 2021, the vaccine coming out, there's so many new issues. So if practitioners and investigators aren't aware of the nature of the beast when it comes down to the pandemic and what to do about it and how to look for issues, or crime related to people taking advantage of that, or understanding that people will come into the company when they shouldn't be coming into the company, and they, at age 60, they've got a health condition, they might have diabetes or high blood pressure. The sales director might go and take the sales records and put it onto chip, onto disk, on memory stick, and walk out and tell their children, look, if anything happens to me and I die, I want you to go to this competitor and go and sell it for $100,000, whatever. People will do desperate things. So when it comes down to the sale of intellectual property or reputational damage, when a security manager buys the wrong equipment and the company is in disrepute, all these things are taking place. This is a very important moment in time, which calls for the knowledge that you acquire in order to deal with this particular issue as now. And the second of all is to deal with like-minded practitioners like your event, where we can actually talk about things that we've uncovered, that we've discovered. These are important so that we have a heightened level of situational awareness. We have to pay attention to our location and our field of interest, and therefore it's vital to participate. Just like a surgeon. A surgeon, before they go into theatre, before they pick up and that scalpel to start to do surgery, they want to see the x-rays, and they want to see the blood work, and they want to see the scans. They want to know every single thing about that person before they actually start surgery. And they only hold the life of one person in their hand. As practitioners, we have to know everything, and we not only have one life in our hands, we've got either, if you're in a city, you can be in charge of millions of people, thousands of people. In a hotel, it could be in charge of hundreds of people. At the end of the day, when we start doing investigations, we have to conduct ourselves like a professional surgeon. And what does a surgeon do? Is that they have no problem. They don't have an ego. It supersedes. They don't want to, security people feel inadequate at times. The point is that's not part of this. This is deadly outcomes. We have to be very honest with ourselves and be mature that we actually will phone up colleagues in the same field and say, have you had a case that's like this? Or have you had a case like that? Have you heard of this type of situation? Because we need information like a surgeon would do with their colleagues. We have to do the same. It's a vital, important event, this event that's being held today, this leadership summit for the ADPI. So I want to thank you so much for the time that you've allowed me to address your event. I'm truly honored. And I want to wish all of you, each and every one of you, safety, health, and uncover that crime, because we need to know about it. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Mr. Kirsten, for a very thought-provoking and insightful session. I couldn't agree more with you that 2021 is going to be has a lot of expectations attached to it. Many of us are expecting that, vaccines will be out and about, everyone will be vaccinated, and we can all get back to life as normal. Unfortunately, there is a high chance that that might not actually take place. So given the circumstances, given those potential realities, how do you find or uncover a crime?
It's very different to what we used to do. It's so different. So we have to understand the nature of the beast. And unfortunately, we don't know where it's coming from, because our biggest nightmare is not knowing what's happening on the ground. So we're going to try and obviously gather information and look for a person of concern. And a person of concern would be something similar to a person that's being manipulated by organized crime or transnational crime. And they use various techniques. They do bullying, blackmail, extortion. So in order to try and find somebody, you have to see and notice the behavior of people that are, they feel under threatened. The problem is that everybody's very depressed and everybody's defensive. So it's very difficult to actually get to know and to identify somebody, but it can be done. We have to do it because in investigation, we have to obviously ask questions and we have to identify questions, and people, you know, they lie and they hide information or they volunteer information for their own agenda. So we need to acquire the skill sets and actually master the skill craft to be able to identify a person and to gather reliable and all the information. And from that point, we'll actually be able to determine if they're working voluntarily on their own. And then obviously if they're working in concert with organized crime with somebody else, be it voluntarily or maybe under duress. And more than likely it'll be under duress because they're also going against their moral code when they're doing things. And in that way, we can actually identify a person and see exactly who they're connected to. But the type of crime is not going to be usual crime. It's going to be unusual crime. And so therefore, we have to know the culture of the crime, criminal methods. We have to, I think the best tool, if we can say this for an investigator, is by critical thinking, because we have to find something or make something or know something that we don't know with what we do know. And I think that's the secret. And so periodically we have to train, just like a surgeon does with certain skill sets, in order to identify that person of interest or of concern and then be able to follow it. But we have to know the nature of the beast. We have to consider the person's age group, where they're positioned, what type of crime would they do. So if they are ill and they are financial director, obviously all the company's books or the secrets of the company, the sales sheets and all their data, that's intellectual property. So we can understand, it gives us a bit of guidance in how to actually look for the crime and how to investigate it, because those are the things that we need to know.
Perfect. Yeah. So thanks a lot, Mr. Kirsten. Thanks a lot for being part of this conclave and for sharing such insightful, thought-provoking presentation with us. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, sir.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, members of the Governing Council, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you all today. I'd like to wish the APDI a successful first annual virtual conference. I understand the challenges that a virtual platform can present, and I wish the APDI all the best. Thank you to your chairman, Kumar Vikram Singh, and for allowing me the opportunity to say a few words and prepare a short presentation. I'm going to speak to you about international fraud. Also, thank you to your president, Sibash Wadawan, and RP Chauhan, who is the WAD third vice president. Thank you very much. I'll now start my presentation. It's a shame that I won't be able to take any questions. However, if there are any that crop up, please feel free to reach me on my contact details. I'm going to talk about international fraud, and I know that everyone in this room would understand the level of complexity there is with international fraud and how huge it really is. So I've been given a 20 to 30 minute gap to speak about this, and I'll do my best to get as much information over as possible. Just before I start, a little bit about me. My name is Mike Lacourt. I'm the CEO of a company called Conflict International, which is a global investigation and intelligence agency, and I'm speaking to you from London. We have offices in London, the US, and throughout Europe. I'm also the current chairman of the World Association of Detectives, and I'm sure many of you have heard of the WAD. I know we have past presidents and actually sitting presidents in your room today, and many members as well. But basically, it's an association of almost 1,000 members, investigators, security professionals in over 80 countries around the world. And throughout this network of professionals, we interact, and I'll come on to the WAD a little bit more and showing the benefits of being a member there. I've been in the private sector conducting international investigations for over 20 years, numerous international fraud cases in various jurisdictions around the world. I was voted WAD Investigator of the Year 2016 in Bucharest, and I'm the recipient of the Richard Jacques Turner Award for Excellence in 2019. And I'm a member of many, many professional associations around the world. So before I go on with my presentation, I just wanted to play a short video of the WAD, the World Association of Detectives, so you can understand a little bit more about what it is, because I will be referring to it during my presentation. So the WAD, World Association of Detectives, was established in 1925, and it's a group of just over 900 members worldwide, representing 80 different countries around the world, and they're professional investigators and working in the security industry. Whether you're a small agency or whether you just work locally, sometimes clients may need a project done in another jurisdiction. Now you have some options. You can either just refer that to the member direct, or if you want to grow your business and enhance the services and jurisdictions that you operate in, then why not reach out to a member through the association, a trusted member that you know that's got the necessary skill sets to do that work to your level, report back to you and be part of your team, an extension to your own team wherever you're based. And that's what the association really is. We hold 2 events a year. There's the midterm and the annual gala. The annual gala is done in various locations around the globe. It changes annually, and in that there'll be some topical presentations, guest speakers, there's some networking events, and then there's a big gala dinner. And during that process of spending time continuously with members from around the world, you end up developing trusted personal relationships with these people, and it's a very unique association that enables you to have really friends around the globe that are in the same industry, like-minded business professionals as well. So when you do have a matter that needs an investigator in another jurisdiction, you've got a trusted partner that you've developed a social relationship with, and they're going to have that responsibility to do that work as well as you would do. If you're willing to attend the events, network with the members, interact, put yourself out there, you'd be surprised the amount of knowledge, depth that there is in this organisation. And I know from a personal perspective that our international business has gone through the roof. You know, the WAD has really, really helped our international growth, my confidence and my team's confidence in supplying international solutions to our clients, the networking that goes on, and the people you meet. And like I said, I keep going back to the social side of it as well. You do end up developing
trusted friendships and relationships, business relationships and friendships around the world, and that is pretty unique. It's not every organisation allows you to do that, and with the WAD it does. You develop trusted, professional and personal relationships around the globe.
Okay, thank you for that. Listening to that, if anyone needs any information about the WAD, please contact your WAD members that are in the room here, RP I'm sure, or Kumar Vikram Singh will be happy to talk to you. So my presentation to you today is going to be about international fraud. It's a huge subject and I haven't got that long, so I'm going to skip through this presentation pretty quick, just to give you an overview of my knowledge and insight into fraud. So let's start with the basics and the fraud definition. What is fraud? Well, fraud is an internationally deceptive action designed to provide the perpetrator with an unlawful gain or to deny a right to a victim. There are various types of fraud, and I'm sure you're all familiar with those, but they include tax, credit card, wire fraud, securities, bankruptcy fraud. But fraudulent activity can be carried out by one individual, multiple individuals, or actually a business firm as a whole. I'll read this out as well, and I've included all the source links in the presentation in case you wish to see where the information's come from. But types of fraudulent acts are the falsification of documents, known as forgery, counterfeiting, involving duplication or fabrication, theft of one's personal information or identity, like finding out someone's social security number, then using it as identification, is a type of fraud. And given the opportunity for fraud now, it can be committed through and across many media options, including mail, wire, phone, internet, and given the international nature of the web and ease in which users can hide their location, sometimes it's difficult to actually get behind who's committing the fraud. But also it gives hackers techniques available to gain access to personal data, and this is where it creates the perfect storm for fraud to take place with our globalization. Now, naturally, through the COVID period, I'm trying to keep the presentation COVID neutral. However, we are in a pandemic at the moment, and that cocktail of the way the pandemic has evolved has created numerous fraud opportunities. So what does fraud really cost? Now, I've done some research and pulled some stats from PricewaterhouseCoopers conducted a survey, and amongst a couple of other professional global firms. And it says that there are fraud costs the global economy around $5 trillion a year. Now think about that. It's a huge, huge figure. Just in the 2017 annual fraud indicator for the UK, it's around £190 billion every year. And the private sector is hit the hardest, which is some huge numbers, which then moves on to the cyber losses. Now, Grant Thornton conducted a study for the UK mid-market businesses, and it's an estimate at 30 billion a year, the cybersecurity cost. Now, why did I include this? Well, during my research, I found that 63% of these companies that have been subject to fraud or are out there do not have a dedicated board member responsible for cybersecurity. So that's only 1 in 3 companies have a dedicated board member responsible for cybersecurity. And only a third have actually trained their employees in the last 12 months. That, for me, during my research in preparing to speak to you today, is quite alarming, actually. Seen as though more than half of the companies reported losses between 3 and 10% of their revenue following a cyber breach. So you can imagine that up to 10% of your revenue lost through cyber, surely that would constitute appointing a board member responsible for cyber. I'm sure that will change and evolve, and where companies are reviewing their annual budgets, but I'm sure that there will be more focus and concern within the cybersecurity sphere. Another point is almost 70% of the respondents felt confident in their ability to respond consistently to a cyber attack across the entire organization. However, over half the businesses surveyed do not have a cyber incident response plan in place. So I think that in terms of robust cyber solutions tackling fraud, a large percentage of companies are falling short. So we're talking about private sector fraud investigating, and I just want to give you a couple of facts before I talk about the international investigators conducting international fraud. So 56% of companies have actually experienced fraud in the last 24 months. This affects 1 in 10 people. A big point here is numerous company frauds go unreported to the authorities. Now, why would companies not want to report fraud to the authorities? Well, I suppose it does depend on the company, their policies and procedures, and whether there's a legal requirement to report the fraud. But let's take that to one side. Maybe reporting fraud could damage the reputation of a company, depending on what type of company it is. It could be bad publicity as well. And these are the reasons that some companies choose not to report the fraud. So therefore, the true fraud figures could be somewhat lower, or much higher, than what's actually being reported. So these are the questions I want to talk about today. Why investigate internationally? What are investigation objectives? What are the objectives? And how do we investigate international fraud? And what tools, as private sector investigators, what tools do we have available to us? So with any case, and this just doesn't go for fraud, but it goes for anything. Prior to investigating, we really need to have a clear, defined strategy. And this is really a key outline before tackling any type of investigation. However, I understand it does depend on the type of fraud, the client's policies, the internal, external risks of conducting an investigation, and actually the overall client objective in conducting an investigation. But before we go international, before we go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, we need to at least have a clear understanding of a defined strategy so that the investigation team follow this strategy. Okay, so what are the objectives? I suppose fraud gets moved into two main groups, and it's whether the client wishes to pursue the fraud matter civilly through the courts with a monetary gain or monetary recovery, or through a criminal angle in order to go through prosecution, or a combination of both. So we need to understand what those objectives are. Does the client have a duty or obligation to report the fraud to the authorities? Some companies that are listed on various exchanges are duty bound to report these frauds if they're governed by an independent body, for example. What's the appetite from the authorities to independently investigate, depending on the size of the fraud and where it is? What appetite will the authorities and what resources will they allocate to investigate the fraud? There's also jurisdictional issues. Let's take a cyber fraud that's taken place and the perpetrators are in a jurisdiction where they are difficult to identify and prosecute, then how does the local authority, police authority, how will they take that? How view will they take? Will there be jurisdictional issues if there are, say, more than one jurisdiction? And if the fraud is reported to the authorities, does the client maybe lose control and management of the investigation? are there any other external risks, as in reputation in media, if that's picked up somewhere else? So there are many different things to consider when outlining objectives of a fraud investigation, especially when you're hitting the international market. So what tools are available in the private sector? We all talk about investigation, international investigation, and tackling a fraud that jumps from country to country, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Well, what investigation tools are available in the private sector? What can private international investigators do? Obviously, the first phase would be to have an overall investigation review, understand what's actually happened, conduct the necessary due diligence and information collation, collect the information in a way that is preserving the evidence in case it needs to be used thereafter, or handed over to authorities, or reported in a court of law. Document and preserve evidence as you would any natural investigation. And then the investigation takes place: the how, when, what, where, why, who, identifying, putting all the pieces together. How did the fraud happen? Why? Where were the gaps? Who's behind it? Is it possible to identify the individual or individuals or company, or where the fraud took place and who's responsible? Putting those pieces together and preparing a report as what investigators do. And thereafter, there's if it's a civil matter and there are quantified losses that the client can go after and recover, then there could be an asset tracing investigation, where utilizing skills and resources from international partners around the globe to identify these hidden assets that could come as part of a recovery process. And then, of course, we have cyber security. Okay, so let's talk a little bit deeper into the international tools that are available at the private sector. I spoke about the WAD earlier, and I will come on to that during this slide, especially at point 10. But available information really does depend on jurisdictions to jurisdiction, and which jurisdictions the subjects, the fraudsters, the perpetrators, the individuals behind the breach are located, where they're from, and what's possible to conduct, what type of inquiries can be conducted. But international investigators have access to open and closed source subscription type databases, consented databases that can assist in procuring and developing information and leads. There's desktop information investigations, which are part and parcel for every investigator. Document and IT forensic examination, reviewing documentation, conducting forensic examinations, imagery of computers and phones and data, and going through to look for information and or leads. Investigators can adopt field inquiries once leads have been developed, asking questions, conducting potential interviews, undercover, covert inquiries, potentially mounting surveillance to review individuals that are associated to the fraud. There are, depending if this is a civil case and lawyers are involved and information has been obtained by a court order or legal discovery, that information can then be assessed. But the most important part really is having an international support network of agents worldwide. When you're dealing with fraud that's shared across several jurisdictions, sometimes simultaneously, and there may be time constraints in conducting inquiries in more than one jurisdiction at the same time. This is where being part of associations like the WAD, forming relationships with other professionals in other countries, that the investigation team expands to a network of trusted professionals around the world that can tackle multi-jurisdictional fraud. And this is really important. I did say I was going to go on to the international support network of professional agents, and I wanted to talk about that just for a little bit more. But when conducting an international investigation, it's so important to understand what the local laws are, what's available, what investigation tools are available, the methodology, how local investigators in these jurisdictions around the world, how they operate, what they can and can't do, what's available and what isn't, what techniques, tricks and tips could you adopt in one country that would not be possible in another. Understanding that, mounting these tools, using these tools and mounting this investigation in more than one jurisdiction is where you need local experts in local countries who can harness the resources of that country, the resources of what's possible, the information, and report it back to you. Now, when you're dealing in the private sector, and I'm not going to say this happens all the time, but in certain cases, there's less red tape. So private sector investigators could potentially utilize and mobilize a global investigation team and react quicker to multi-jurisdictional fraud cases than the authorities in certain fraud scenarios. And this is a huge, valuable tool to all of us, especially when dealing with clients who they may not have they may not be an international client. They could be a mid-range business operating in one country. However, the fraud that was committed is the individuals behind the fraud could be in various jurisdictions around the world, and motivating and mobilizing local authorities to investigate a fraudulent matter in various jurisdictions may, depending on where you are, be a difficult thing to do. Where in the private sector, that investigation can take place pretty quick. Now, I'm not saying this is in all circumstances and scenarios. However, in many scenarios, this can be an advantage. I've listed some useful resource links here, and I know I haven't got time to really go into detail in each one, but I just wanted to give you guys an overview of international fraud and how the international private investigators conduct international investigations when it comes to fraud. And I would say that fraud would be the largest, or if not the largest, one of the largest areas that international investigators tackle and handle. And navigating your way and understanding what's possible in terms of reporting through global authorities or local authorities, right up to the legal tools that are available to you to tackle, investigate and recover is important to understand. And having a network of trusted professionals around the globe that you can depend on is paramount to any type of international investigation. I've left my contact details here. By all means, please send me an email, keep in contact. If there's any questions about the presentation, any of the slides, then let me know. I'm sure that they can be made available to you. If anyone has any other questions, then feel free to contact me. Just finally like to thank Kumar Vikram Singh, the chairman of APDI, and Subhash Wadhawan, the president of APDI. Wish you a successful conference. Congratulations on your first virtual conference and hosting this, and to all the governing council and the board, the members and attendees, congratulations, and I wish you an excellent conference. Thank you once again.
Friends, a little brief of our profession. This profession started by King Ashoka the Great around 232 BC. The king used to receive a lot of complaints about corruption and cruelty from various personalities. So he, along with his minister Chanakya, they started disguising themselves and going to public, and they caught several persons, those who were indulging themselves. This is how he improved his administration. India, this profession started sometime in early 1950s. And that was the time when nobody used to give any importance to our profession. Even the newspaper never used to publish our advertisements saying that this is a bullshit business. The things have changed over the years. And now the media is lined up to interview our investigators whenever such occasion arises. Be there is a crime in the society, be there is a corruption, be there is a agitation, they come to us to seek our advice and become a channel to communicate to the government. This national conclave was organized. This is the first time this conclave has been organized, and there is a great response to this. A lot of personalities from all over the world, they have given their thought, they are participating in that. You have just heard many participants who have shared their great experiences in the field of insurance, banking, and other things. APDI, in partnership with Business World, has organized this first National Corporate Investigator Conclave 2020. It is being attended by several persons. India being the host country, the maximum participants from the country. Various organizations from corporate world, such as hotel, pharma, and insurance, have shown great interest and are currently participating in this platform. I'm happy to share with you that this conclave, which is the first one, will be a regular feature, and every year there will be a similar conclave. The platform might change. I feel greatly honored and thank all the speakers who have shared their thoughts and spoken on their various subjects. I also thank all the participants for joining this conclave 2020 within the country. Wishing you a very happy Christmas, Diwali, and New Year. Jai Hind.
Hi, everyone watching this event organized by APDI and Business World. I am thankful to all eminent speakers from various countries who spoke so well and shared their knowledge. I'm happy to say that is his first national conclave on the subject which will help corporate in a big way. My special thanks Shri Anurag Batraji, Chief Editor of Business World, and his team for their support. My special thanks to Shivendra Pratap Singh for his hard efforts to make this conclave happen. Thanks to Shri N.C. Padiji and Chairman Kumar Vikram Singh ji for their blessings. The APDI will organize more such events to cover a specific subject on corporate intelligence. Wishing you a very happy Christmas and wonderful year ahead. Thank you so much. Jai